This piece is the largest in the exhibition and is called The Long Haul. I painted it this year, believe it or not, right before the news of the pandemic broke out. So it measures 48 by 60 inches, and it's acrylic painted papers, ink, and gold metal leaf on canvas. In this piece, I was thinking about these two animals, the frogs and the snails, in the context of what they symbolize spiritually, in addition to their biological role in our world. Snail balloons in a snail ship sail through the sky. The snails are carrying the symbol of adaptation, the frogs, as their precious cargo. Snails are animals that spiritually represent gentle patience, but also destruction, while frogs represent abundance and the ability to adapt. In our fast-paced world, we can stand to slow down. There is an urgent need for change, but we need to remember that big changes take a long time and happen in really small increments. Ecologically, both of these creatures are extremely sensitive. When an ecosystem collapses, frogs are known to be some of the first organisms to disappear, and snails are seen as pests by many people and are often destroyed in gardens. But in killing them off, we threaten the entire ecosystem and all of the creatures that rely on them for food. This is not unlike our tendency to rush through something rather than giving it the time it deserves. Both notions have disastrous consequences. So, again, I created this piece before the news of the pandemic broke, and I thought that it was really interesting, both in the context of, we're always rushing through the world and going really, really fast, and kind of not giving things the patience that they deserve. And now we're having to really adapt, and we are having to really be patient and really take time to reflect and change. So like I was saying before, these things can be really destructive in the end. So this piece is kind of talking about rushing through something, going really fast, and then it's also really good for talking about what we're going through now with the pandemic. This piece is called The Heavy Burden of Change, and it measures 8 by 10 inches, and it's painted on a 11 by 14 piece of paper with acrylic and ink and cut paper. And this one features a little frog who is being carried around by a firefly by his little harness. And it's really from the firefly's point of view. So he's very hopeful. He's a symbol of hope and innocence. But the frog is quite large, and he symbolizes adaptation and change. And this is kind of about how it feels to go through changes. This piece is called Up and Away, and it features a fox that is being lifted up from his little harness by the fireflies. And the fox, again, is a decision maker in my work, and he's lifted up. It's kind of a playful piece by these little hopeful glowing fireflies. This piece measures 8 by 10 inches, and it is acrylic, ink, and painted papers on. This piece is called Hope Will Carry Us Through. It is an 8 by 10 image painted on an 11 by 14 piece of paper. So it's created with painted papers, acrylic ink, and gold metal leaf, and it is on watercolor paper. In it, a firefly carries a box turtle through the sky at dawn, and it's kind of a little study of these characters again, but it's a little reminder that we are going through some dark times, and the world is asking us to be still, to think of others, and to look within. The turtle is a messenger and keeper of stories, while the fireflies symbolize innocence, hope, and magic. This piece is called Respite, and it is super duper new. I just finished these pieces right before the show opened, And this one is a little toad that has sprouted wings and is surrounded by fireflies, and he's kind of taking rest on the clouds, but the fireflies are symbols of hope and kind of inner wisdom, so they are guiding. This piece is called The Long Journey Upwards. It measures 30 by 30 inches. It's made with acrylic, cut paper, ink, and graphite on masonite. And in it, it features like my two favorite characters from this year, which are the frogs, symbols of adaptation and change. And they are carried around by mushrooms, which again are the great recyclers of nature. And they are popping up everywhere right now, and have been all year. This piece also features fireflies, which are symbols of hope and internal character, and they are acting as guides or like little lanterns for the frogs on their journey. So mushrooms are symbols of transformation, and they transform decay into new energy that becomes useful to the forest. Mushroom mycelium is one of the major pillars that hold the forest together. Though the current climate is dreary and often bleak, we're going through a massive, very painful transformation. But at the end of the journey will come clarity and hope. So my question with this piece, and I thought about this, is kind of asking you, how can we break down the old ways of thinking and transform them into something we can use to move forward in our society? And how can we begin our own journeys to better ourselves? This piece is called Night Ride. It measures 16 by 20 inches. It is created with acrylic, cut paper, and ink on birch. In it, the rabbits storm the night sky on their trusty flying fish. And the rabbits are symbols, again, of abundance and happiness. And here they are riding flying fish, which are known to represent emotional freedom. In this piece, the rabbits are harnessing their emotional freedom to reach new heights. This piece is a larger piece. It measures 30 by 40 inches, and it's called Turn the Tide. And it's created with acrylic, India ink, graphite, painted papers, and gold metal leaf on masonite. I've used the symbol of the fox in my work a lot because the fox is known as a messenger and kind of a clever decision maker. In this piece, two foxes sail through the skies towards a full moon on a mission to turn the tide on Earth's future. So I was thinking a lot about the environment here, and they are guided by ancient knowledge, represented by the owl that steers their sails. So owls represent feminine wisdom, so it's kind of like being their guide. The foxes carry baskets of herbs in their ships, and then they're also guided by orioles. And the herbs have meaning, but so do the orioles. The orioles are an embodiment of sunshine, and when they appear, positive change is coming. They signify coming into one's magic or power. And though we seem to be in a very dark time indeed, the orioles remind us that the sun is coming. The foxes carry the baskets of herbs. There's rue in there, there's rosemary, mint, sage, lilac, and ambrosia. Each one of these herbs has a special meaning. The mint is a calming herb, while the rosemary is an herb of remembrance. Sage is known for helping with memory loss and depression, while rue is used for protection. Lilac is a flower used for protection as well, and ambrosia, or ragweed, as you may know it in your garden, is an herb known to be immortal. It comes back time and time again. These herbs serve as a sign that our current decisions must reflect the knowledge that we've gathered from past experiences. Our world is right now at the cusp of destruction, and the outlook is pretty bleak. We all live here and have a responsibility to preserve it for ourselves, for the other beings that live here, and for our children. We need to use the past as a guide for the decisions we make about our future, and this work reminds us to make these decisions wisely as we look. This piece is called Flight of the Storytellers, and I think it's a really sweet piece. I love the square format. This one is 18 by 18 inches, acrylic painted papers, gold metal leaf, and ink on a birch panel. And this features the turtle, which is known as the storyteller in folklore. And I've been thinking a lot about how we are followed by our stories and how we can really become entrenched in them. But we can also come to terms with them and leave them behind, or change the pieces of our stories that do not serve us. So the fox is kind of a trickster in this, but he's also very clever, and so he's maybe acting as a guide for the turtle. And then you have also the flying fish, which are symbols of emotional freedom. So we can kind of, through emotional maturity, come to change our stories and learn from them. This piece is called A Time of Great Discernment, and I made it, started on it last year and finished it up this year. And it measures 16 by 20 inches and is made with acrylic painted paper and ink on birch panel. In it, there's a lot going on. The fox comes to us at times of great discernment, so times where you have to make big decisions. And we have to use our wisdom and intuition to navigate a situation with success. Reproduction and rebirth are central themes in this work, and I represent them here with the rabbits. Though the rabbits seem very wary of the fox, they are nevertheless carried towards it by the flying fish, which again are symbols of emotional freedom. The fox hovers nearby with the lunafish, kind of looking dejected, and they all sort of like hover in the air. There's also actual flying fish here. This is right when the flying fish were starting to evolve into the lunafish. So it is a really interesting piece. And also, even though I was thinking about like women's rights in this one and kind of my place in motherhood, and having children, it's also really interesting because now is a time of great discernment in our society, and it's a really big picture that encompasses those notions, but also many others. This is a really recent piece. It's called The Bailout. It is 36 by 60 inches. It's pretty big. And in it, the rabbits are riding lunafish, and they soar to the rescue of a sinking ship, but they seem to be trying to empty the ocean to stop the ship from taking on water. The ship exhibits a cheerful smile as it opens its jaws to let the water in. So my question is, are the bunnies trying to help, or are they hindering the ship? And can they empty the ocean to preserve just the one ship? In my most recent paintings, the ocean is a symbol of the vast unknown. It is neither a positive nor a negative player in the dreams, but serve instead as the unknowable. With the uncertainty of each day and the tumult we are subjected to, it's hard to know whether to embrace the unknown or to fight against it. I've used the imagery of the bunnies as little saviors zooming through this body of work. They represent hope, abundance, and happiness, and they ride their trusty steeds, the lunafish, which I've created to embody emotional freedom and renewal. With these little spirits as our guides, can we conquer the depths and expanse of the unknowable stormy sea? This piece is called Breaking Free. It measures 16 by 20 inches, and it's created with acrylic, painted paper, gold leaf, and ink on a birch panel. This one gives a nod to the rabbit as a symbol for fertility and the decisions women make in their lives. In this piece, the flying fish, symbols of emotional freedom, have broken free and left the rabbit behind. This work is called Coming Home. It measures 11 by 14 inches. It's made with acrylic cut paper, ink, and gold leaf on birch. And it's about being carried back home by your story to make a fresh start. This piece is called Defending the Guardians, and it measures 18 by 18 inches, and it is created with acrylic paint, painted papers, gold leaf, and India ink on wood. In this piece I was exploring the cyclical existence that women live, tied so closely to the moon and the cycles of the earth. The imagery of the hawthorn tree serves two purposes here. In folklore and medicine, the hawthorn is a powerful tree. Its berries are known for their strong effects on the heart. And then the hawthorn's trunk is covered in thorns, and as such, is also seen as a tree of protection as well as a gateway to other worlds. Women have been subjugated, controlled, and feared for as long as they've been in existence for their close and powerful ties to life and death. In their ability to bring life into the world, they sit at the crossroads or gateway, both wonderful and terrible, at the head of humanity. As a creature of the night, the owl is known for its ties to the moon and is associated with the goddess Athena or Diana, the keepers of wisdom in Greek and Roman mythology. In this piece, the owl takes flight from the branch from the hawthorn tree in its talons. And the owl and the hawthorn remind us to honor and respect wisdom that all women have in being the keepers of, or the guardians of, the spiritual and magical gateway between life and death. We, in turn, must remember that each woman carries her own piece of wisdom with her. We must trust her to use her wisdom to make choices for her life, no matter what outcomes they bring, and no matter where they are. This piece is called Midnight Adventure. It measures 4 by 12 inches and is acrylic painted papers and gold leaf on the birch. In it, a fox embarks on a midnight adventure. This is a really wonderful and very detailed piece. It is called When We First Met. It measures 30 by 40 inches. It's acrylic hand-painted papers, gold leaf, and graphite on masonite. And all the little leaves are cut out of paper and collaged onto the surface. So that's kind of how I build my work. This one has even more of that than usual. And anyway, in this piece, a flock of flying fish encounter an owl, and the owl is, of course, a symbol for feminine wisdom. And the flying fish is a symbol of self-discovery and emotional freedom. Our society encourages us to use our heads rather than our hearts to make rational decisions. In this piece, I question the wisdom of suppressing our intuition and emotions, which are some of the defining traits that make us human, and they're also considered feminine traits. So I think it's interesting that society kind of wants us to quiet those feelings rather than model. This piece is called Mountain Moon. It measures 4 by 12 inches. It's made with acrylic ink and painted papers on birch, and it is a little valley study. I used to live in a town called Brasstown, and it was surrounded by the Appalachian Mountains. And, you know, of course, the mountains are blue at certain times of day. And this is just a little rabbit, little symbol of abundance and happiness, kind of poking its head up out of the tall grass. This piece is called Beacons in the Night. It measures 18 by 24 inches, and it's made with acrylic painted papers, ink and graphite on a birch panel. So this piece is, again, about adaptation, because I'm using the frogs, and it's also about kind of finding hope in really dark times. So there are so many beacons of light and hope that are emerging from these really difficult times. And the frog, symbol of transformation and adaptation, is lifted up by these glowing beacons of light that emerge from the night that surrounds him. There's also little rabbits hidden here, which is another symbol of adaptation, happiness, and abundance. And they kind of watch him as he floats along. So these beacons are created from mushrooms, and there's so many mushrooms coming up this year, and mushrooms kind of grow from dead things. So they're the great recyclers of nature. And I was thinking that mushrooms were kind of a symbol of hope in that way, that we've seen way more death this year than we could possibly ever imagine. And we have seen some really horrible things, but I was thinking maybe that we're going through all of this for a reason, and we're going to be able to become better versions of ourselves because of what we're going through. This piece is called The Search. It is 10 by 10 inches, and it's made with acrylic painted papers and ink on a birch panel. It features a barn owl flying over a meadow on its nightly search. Owls are symbols of feminine wisdom, and so I really love using them in my work. They also symbolize the moon and the goddess Athena, and so this is a little owl and moon. So this piece is called Moon Turtle, and it is 10 by 10 inches. It is made with acrylic, painted papers, and ink on a birch panel, and it features a little turtle with cut paper grass staring up at the moon. The turtles are the messengers and keepers of doorways, and so this is just a little turtle and night skies. This is a brand new piece called The Darkest Night, and I just finished it recently. It is 30 by 30 inches, and it is acrylic painted papers, ink, graphite, and gold metal leaf on cradled gesso board. So in it, it features the foxes, which are the craftiest of all the creatures that I feature in my imagery, and they are kind of like my little inventors. And they're in a rolling and stormy sea. There's a big bright moon, the sea is really stormy, and the future looks bleak. And so, ever the innovators, the foxes have found a way forward with a splendid machine. And it's emerging from the watery depths, and this machine is kind of how I envisioned my little creatures responding to the pandemic. So rather than masks, they, of course, that would not be practical, so they have invented a bubble machine, which makes bubbles so they can all hang out together. This piece is called Moonlight through the Hackberry. It is 11 by 14 inches and made with acrylic, painted papers, and ink on masonite. This work depicts a crow sitting in a hackberry tree, which is closely related to the elm tree. And the hackberry tree is not only a medicinal tree, but its berries are sweet, and its various parts can be used to treat illnesses. The hackberry is also known for its grounding properties and encourages the consumer to be their best and strongest self. The crow is becoming more common in my imagery, and I use the crow to signify important messages from the universe, so he's kind of like another messenger from another world. In this next piece, two rabbits are sailing towards the moon with a school of lunafish as their guides. A warrior rabbit with little arrows and a little harness and safety glasses for safety. It floats in their wake, along with a few other lone rabbit travelers. The rabbits represent abundance, and the lunafish is, again, the combination of the flying fish and the luna moth, symbolizing renewal and rebirth through emotional freedom. For this piece, I was researching the tarot deck and archetypes, and the archer functions from a place of boldness, intuition, bravery, and self-reliance. If you get the archer and the tarot deck, and they ask us to commit to our intentions and harnessing our own potential. And I thought, what an amazing companion to take on the journey of exploration. The lovers is another archetype, and they are represented by the two rabbits sailing closest to the moon in the ship. They represent harmony and unity, but they also represent difficult decisions. And then there's several loners in this piece. The Fool is seen as the traveler of the tarot deck. It means an abandonment of material things, spontaneity, and uncertainty. But the Fool also represents overcoming limits. In my mind, the Fool represents rebirth and redirection, which is why it is often depicted as a traveler. This piece is about our life's journey. Whether we travel alone or together, our paths are all different, but they begin and end the same way. And then I was also thinking about something that someone told me once, that you are everyone that you will ever meet. So like if you love someone or you hate them, you're just meeting another version of yourself from another time and place. So So just thinking about all of these little creatures kind of floating around, but all of them kind of being on the same larger picture path. So this one is called To the Moon. It is 36 by 60, and it's made with acrylic, painted papers, gold metal leaf, and ink on canvas. This piece is called Swept Away. It is 18 by 48 inches. It's made again with acrylic, painted papers, ink, and gold leaf on canvas. And in this one there's two little bunnies, and they are being carried off by the lunafish. It's one of the first times I've used the lunafish imagery, and again the lunafish symbolize emotional freedom and renewal, and then the bunnies are like little symbols of abundance and happiness, and they are being swept away kind of along for the ride with their little safety goggles and their little harnesses. This first piece is called Possessing the Courage to Change the Story, and it is 18 by 48. It is acrylic and painted papers, ink, gold metal leaf, and graphite on canvas. The symbolism in this work is, you can see the lunafish, and they are transporting box turtles across the night sky. Turtles are symbols of courage and determination, as well as they also carry, in many stories, they carry the weight of the world, and they're also story keepers. So I feel like we are often limited or overly involved in our own stories, and so in this piece the lunafish, which are a combination of flying fish and the luna moth, and together they are symbols of emotional freedom and renewal. So they are kind of helping the little turtles to get out of their shells, if you will excuse the pun, and they're carrying them off into the night sky. This piece is called Working with What You've Got, and it is definitely a pandemic piece. It was one of the first pieces I made after the news of the pandemic broke out. It is 11 by 14 inches. It's acrylic, ink, painted paper, and gold metal leaf on hardboard. And it features a spring peeper frog that's being flown by a dragonfly on a leaf boat into the night sky. Both the frogs and the dragonflies are symbols of adaptation and transformation. And the pandemic, boy, has it made us adapt and transform. The dragonfly is also a reminder to us to explore our emotions on a deeper level. And then the frog, of course, can adapt to many situations, land and water. And it's also a symbol of abundance, which is really interesting to me, that we can be abundant and have abundance through adapting to our surroundings, even despite the pandemic. This piece is called Carrying Our Stories. It is 11 by 14 inches, and it is acrylic and painted paper on a birch panel. And in this one, it's just like a little study of the box turtle, which I have been seeing a lot of this year and the previous year. And again, the turtle is known in folklore as like a story keeper, and he carries like all of the world's weights on his back, and he is being lifted up by the lunafish, and he's marrying a spiritual awakening with the structure of the story. This piece is called Searching for a Resolution. It is 11 by 14, and it's made with acrylic, painted papers, ink, and gold metal leaf on hardboard. This is another pandemic piece. It was a very trying year, as you may know. And in trying times, I always feel myself searching desperately for a solution. I'm a solution-oriented person. Toads symbolize adaptability, and this one has sprouted wings that allow him to gain perspective while trying to bring the situation into focus with his little binoculars. This piece is called The Crooked Path. It is 11 by 14 inches. It's made with acrylic, painted papers, ink, and gold metal leaf on hardboard. This is kind of about all of our journeys. The dragonfly is a symbol of understanding, like emotional depth and transformation. And he's traveling a crooked path through the sky. Sometimes we have to revisit the places we've been to find the way forward. So, kind of through examining our past, we can find a brighter future.
This body of work has been building for about 2 years now, and I usually exhibit my work at art fairs around the country, traveling and setting up my art booth. But I get to talk to you guys from my studio, so you can kind of see my studio here. And many of the art fairs this year were canceled, and so 2020 has presented a lot of challenges for myself and other artists. But these pieces have mostly never been in public before, so they are brand new pieces. If you are interested in purchasing any of my pieces, you can visit me on my website, www.laurendesserres.com. I also want to thank you for taking the time to learn more about me as an artist and about each of my pieces. And I want to invite you to come to the Halle Cultural Arts Center in Apex, North Carolina, now through November 20th, 2020. The exhibition will be up. I also want to thank the Halle Cultural Arts Center for making this exhibition possible.